Bonsoir, good evening. Chief Justice Wagner, Principal Fortier, and other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Anne Vroom, and as chair of the Friends of McGill Library, I'm very pleased to welcome you to the first of our fall events, the 2019 F.R. Scott Lecture. Tonight, I'm delighted to note that this marks the 30th anniversary of the inaugural F.R. Scott Lecture, which was held back in 1989. C'est d'autant plus significatif dans le cadre de cette soirée spéciale d'avoir comme notre conférencier invité le très honorable Richard Wagner, juge en chef de la Cour supérieure du Canada. The F.R. Scott Lecture has a long tradition of casting light on a wide variety of important issues. It was established to honor the memory and contributions of Francis Reginald Scott, McGill Law Professor and Dean, constitutional lawyer, human rights activist, and poet. Tonight, Chief Justice Wagner joins the ranks of three other Supreme Court justices, Rosalie Abella, Ian Binney, and Maurice Fish, who have honored us by giving this lecture. Ce soir, le juge en chef et Shauna Van Pra, professeur de droit à McGill, vont explorer une variété de sujets incluant l'interaction entre la loi canadienne et la société contemporaine, les rôles et responsabilités croissantes des juges et juristes, et les défis futurs qu'ils devront affronter. I would like to recognize in the audience this evening the most recent member to be appointed to the Supreme Court of Canada, the Honourable Nicholas Cassirer. Where are you, Nicholas? There he is. Nicholas was very helpful to our committee in organizing this evening's event. Justice Cassirer is well known to our university community as a former McGill Dean of Law, and also he's been a great friend of the library. I would also like to welcome our own Dean of Law and current and great friend and supporter of the library, Robert Leckie. Where are you, Robert Leckie? There he is, hiding at the back. Je voudrais maintenant souligner le support généreux de nos commanditaires de la conférence F.R. Scott de ce soir, le cabinet d'avocats Lavery de Billy. Avant d'être nommé juge en chef du Canada, le très honorable Richard Wagner était un associé de cette firme. Nous sommes très reconnaissants pour leur support ce soir. We are deeply grateful to the law firm Lavery de Billy lawyers for their sponsorship of this evening's lecture and appreciate their generosity in making this event possible. The Friends of the Library have been staunch supporters and advocates for Fiat Lux, Let There Be Light, the project to re-envision and renovate McGill's McLennan Redpath Library. Tonight you've been treated to renderings of Fiat Lux on the screen behind me and have seen what it will look like. We're most excited as work begins to bring this project to fruition. What a wonderful way to celebrate McGill's approaching 200th anniversary. J'aimerais maintenant inviter l'honorable Alan Hilton, juge de la Cour d'appel du Québec et membre dédié de notre Conseil des Amis de la Bibliothèque, de venir faire la présentation de nos conférenciers. It was, in fact, Alan who extended the invitation to the Chief Justice to speak to us this evening, and for this we are very grateful. Alan?
Thank you very much, Anne. I am very pleased to introduce this evening our participants in the annual F.R. Scott Lecture, the Right Honourable Richard Wagner, the Chief Justice of Canada, and Professor Shauna Van Praag of McGill's Faculty of Law. As the Chief Justice may remember, this is the second time I've had occasion to introduce him as a speaker, the last being when he addressed the Quebec Conference of federally appointed judges after his then very recent elevation from the Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court. On that occasion, I said this: En terminant, il faut reconnaître que le défi devant toi est de taille. En effet, tu as accepté des sacrifices importants sur ta vie privée en échange d'une participation au plus haut tribunal du pays. La responsabilité qui en découle est énorme. Dans un sens, tu as fait un don de toi-même à la société canadienne, pour laquelle tu mérites à la fois notre profonde admiration et nos remerciements. That is all the more so true today as our colleague, of those of us who are judges, has now become Chief Justice. In occupying his position, our Chief Justice has had the advantage of having had a distinguished career at the bar as a litigation lawyer, where he will recall, however, that he did not always win his cases. Then having served several years as a trial judge, followed by 2 years or so on our court before being named to the Supreme Court. His journey to our Supreme Court also illustrates the apolitical nature of the Canadian judicial appointment process, especially when we look in dismay at the highly politicized process leading to the appointment of federal judges in the United States. Chief Justice Wagner was appointed as a trial judge by the Liberal government of Prime Minister Martin to the Court of Appeal and to the Supreme Court of Canada by Conservative Prime Minister Harper, and as Chief Justice by our current Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. I might add, in the same vein, that our new Supreme Court Justice was appointed to the Court of Appeal by a Conservative government and to the Supreme Court of Canada by a Liberal government. An equivalent scenario in those two cases is simply unimaginable in the United States, where judges are referred to openly by reference to the political party that nominated them. What is really less known to the public is that in addition to his purely judicial and administrative functions on the Supreme Court of Canada, the Chief Justice has several other demanding obligations. One of the most important of these is that he chairs the Canadian Judicial Council, which is composed of all of the Chief Justices of federally appointed courts in Canada. It is that body that, amongst many other responsibilities, handles complaints made against federally appointed judges. All of which is to say that we are extremely grateful to the Chief Justice for agreeing to participate in this exchange with Professor Van Praagh. She has been teaching at McGill since 1993, and knows something about the day-to-day life in the Supreme Court from the perspective of having had the advantage of being a law clerk to no one other than Chief Justice Brian Dixon, which must have been quite an experience. Alors avec cela, la parole est à vous.
Alors, évidemment, comme Anne Vroom et Alan Hilton ont mentionné, c'est une conversation qui marque une conférence F.R. Scott, la 30e conférence. Et F.R. Scott, c'est un de nos anciens doyens à cette faculté de droit et un juriste aussi à l'aise devant les juges que devant les étudiants. J'aimerais commencer notre conversation en ouvrant les portes littérales de la Cour suprême du Canada. Le poète F.R. Scott a écrit au sujet de la poésie « Nothing can take its place ». Mais nous savons tous qu'il existe plusieurs formes d'expression artistique pour capturer l'essence de la justice, y inclut l'architecture. Et j'ai entendu dire que quand le juge en chef parle de l'édifice de la Cour suprême du Canada, c'est comme la poésie. Alors, je vous invite à nous accompagner, pour commencer, pour un bref tour de chez vous.
Merci beaucoup, Shana. Premièrement, j'aimerais, avant de répondre à votre question, j'aimerais simplement souligner que je suis très honoré d'être ici ce soir. Mais également un peu intimidé aussi, avec un parterre de gens aussi distingués et d'invités. Alors, je vais faire mon possible.
Bon. C'est tout ce qu'on peut demander.
Pour répondre à votre question,
oui.
Moi, je suis un grand amateur de Ernest Cormier. Alors, notre édifice à la Cour suprême, évidemment, c'est un édifice qui a été décidé par Ernest Cormier. Non seulement l'immeuble, mais également le mobilier. Et j'ai eu le privilège de siéger auparavant à la Cour d'appel du Québec avec mon nouveau collègue, le juge cassiraire, Alan Hilton, qui est ici présent aussi, dans un immeuble Cormier aussi, mais à deux époques différentes. On peut voir la différence, mais on peut voir également les points communs. Et quand vous parlez de poésie, bien, vous avez entièrement raison. L'immeuble de la Cour suprême à Ottawa, c'est un immeuble qui sied bien à la fonction judiciaire. Les lignes de Cormier, comme architecte, vous allez voir, ce sont des lignes qui sont bien réfléchies, qui sont bien dessinées, c'est clair. Il y a la lumière dans l'immeuble de Cormier, c'est transparent. Il y a beaucoup de rigueur intellectuelle dans le dessin, dans l'œuvre de Cormier comme architecte. Puis je pense que la rigueur, ça sied bien aussi aux travaux des juges. Alors, quand moi, je rentre dans la cour, quand je rentre à la Cour suprême, comme je rentrais aussi à la Cour d'appel, on sent une espèce de paix intérieure quand on rentre dans l'immeuble. On voit également une espèce de transparence et de rigueur. Je pense que ça va bien avec les travaux des juges de la Cour suprême. Alors, je trouve que c'est peut-être poétique, mais je pense que c'est important aussi.
Oui, non, c'était un beau début. Et on va continuer avec le thème de la transparence, en effet, de la Cour suprême. But I want to move beyond the physical building now to talk about the court as institution. And to do so, I'm going to refer again to F.R. Scott, someone who wore many hats. In addition to being a professor and a dean and a poet, he was, of course, a constitutional lawyer. So as you know, I let you know that I just learned last week that almost 60 years ago, in November 1961, F.R. Scott appeared at the Supreme Court to argue against the banning of D.H. Lawrence's novel, Lady Chatterley's Lover. The lawyer who pleaded against him was your father, Claude Wagner, Minister of Justice for Quebec at the time. Observing all of this was Maurice Fish, a young law student and a journalist for the Montreal Star, who later joined the Supreme Court of Canada. He sends his regrets today, and of course, perhaps most importantly, he was a previous F.R. Scott lecturer. So both Maître Scott and Ministère Wagner were participating, along with the justices of the Supreme Court of Canada, in the shaping of our society. And indeed, the issue for the court was one of the scope of civil liberties and of the scope of state power, long before there was any formal charter of rights to refer to. So you also wear many hats as the Chief Justice of Canada, and one of them is that of being the only person truly responsible at any time for defending the Supreme Court of Canada as a special and crucial institution in our Canadian democracy. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit about what it means to carry that burden and how you impress upon Canadians the significance of treasuring the Supreme Court as an institution.
Well, thank you for that question. First of all, just to go further with the small world environment, my father was also a former student at this university, at McGill University. So maybe that's why he was called to argue such important cases as well. I don't know. But that's part of history. But you're right. I think that I hope I'm not the only one who has to defend or like to defend our institutions like the Supreme Court. I'm not alone. I've got all my colleagues. I've got other people. I've got law professors. Yep. I've got all kinds of people who also share my desire to protect our institutions. And why should we do that? Because when we compare to other countries, I think it's fundamental that we keep our institutions in good shape. And that means to make sure that we have and maintain judicial independence. Because this is the last bastion, the courts are the last bastion to protect against tyranny. And to make sure that the courts are there to protect the individuals, human rights, liberties. They need to be independent. And that's why I try my best to promote the independence of our court. Now, one way to do it is to inform people, because I always found that ignorance is always, or very often, the source of prejudice or bias. So the more you inform the people, the citizens, who may not have the same knowledge of legal background or the law, I think that it's a good thing, because those people, if they know what their institutions are doing, how they do it, they will keep their faith in the institution. So I see no problems for me as the Chief Justice of Canada and for my colleagues to go and take any opportunities that they have to say to the Canadian people what we do, how we do it, and why we do it. And while keeping our obligation de réserve, our devoir de réserve, you still can inform people of our work, because I think that the Canadian people should be proud of our institutions. And you only need to compare with what's going on in other countries not too far from us. I don't think I need to go further than that to understand that it's fragile, and we have to be very careful to continue to protect it. So I think it's my job, and not only mine, but also of my colleagues, to communicate better with people, to give information, because we should be proud of our institutions.
Thank you. So let me push a little bit further on that fragility, and also the ways in which we put our faith in our institutions. Another one of our past Deans of Law, Rod McDonald, entitled his own F.R. Scott lecture, in which he reflected on the ways in which we choose members of the judiciary, appoint, elect, draw straws, or sell to the highest bidder. So in what ways, and I think it ties into what you were just saying, in what ways do we in this country ensure that appropriate factors are taken into account in selecting our judges generally? And then I'm going to ask you a little bit more about the particular process for the Supreme Court.
Well, I think you won't be surprised if I'm telling you that I believe that we have one of the best judiciary in the world. Now, you can say I'm biased. You may be right. But I think my proposition is reasonable, at least, because I was called to travel around the world, and I was able to compare our systems with other systems, and we have a very strong system, and I think that we have all the reasons to make sure that people know about it. And when you talk about appointment process, if you want to talk about usually the federal judges, for instance, there are committees in each province made of many people, different horizons, and they will choose the best possible candidates, and they will make recommendations. So there is a very good selection process. At the Supreme Court, you could see that our last recruit, our last member, the Justice Cassirer, one of the best judges we could have on the bench. It was independent process, and he was called to attend the parliamentary committee and answer questions. And I think that's the best way to make sure that people will keep faith in the system, is to see the judge, to see what he has to say, and to know where he comes from, what's his training, talk about his family a little bit, not about his opinion on legal issues or political issues, but to know who the judge is. And we have nothing to hide. We have everything to gain in exposing our judges. And I was very proud that, and I'm very happy that the Canadian people could look at Justice Cassirer to know to what extent we've got a great addition to our court. It should be always the same thing.
Oui.
We have nothing to hide.
Alors, vous avez bien prévu ma question par rapport, en effet, aux nominations à la Cour suprême. Je voudrais vous pousser un petit peu plus. Pourquoi est-ce que les Canadiens devraient payer attention au processus du comité de Parlement? Et évidemment, la dernière fois, avec l'honorable Nicolas Cazirer, mon collègue, notre ancien doyen de droit. On en a pas mal ce soir. Comment est-ce que les citoyens et citoyennes du Canada devraient prendre avantage de la transparence du processus? Est-ce que pour vous, est-ce que les gens sont assez reconnaissants de cette occasion privilégiée, en effet, de poser les questions, d'écouter les réponses de nos juges mis en nomination?
Je pense que les Canadiens sont intéressés de plus en plus à savoir qui sont nos juges. C'est dans l'ère moderne, je pense, maintenant, depuis plusieurs années avec Internet, maintenant avec les médias sociaux, etc. Les gens veulent savoir. Donc, il y a un intérêt. Et moi, je me souviens quand j'ai comparu devant le comité parlementaire en 2012, dans les jours qui ont suivi, les semaines qui ont suivi, j'ai reçu des cartes postales, des lettres, des mémos de gens dont j'ignorais l'existence, partout un peu à travers le pays. Saskatchewan, BC, Terre-Neuve. Je me souviens d'une carte postale. Il y avait simplement là-dessus, c'était de Saskatoon. C'était l'individu qui disait « I saw you on TV, I liked it, so good luck. » That's it.
C'est pas mal.
C'est pas mal, hein?
Oui, c'est ça. Oui.
Évidemment, ceux qui ne m'ont pas aimé ne m'ont pas écrit. So, I don't know to what extent everybody liked it, but it goes to show you, ça vous démontre jusqu'à quel point les gens sont intéressés à ces choses-là. Maintenant, pourquoi ils devraient toujours être intéressés à ça? Ben, alors, si je vous retourne la question en vous disant, est-ce que vous pensez qu'on parlerait de la législation sur l'aide à mourir aujourd'hui si ce n'était pas de la Cour suprême? Est-ce qu'on parlerait aujourd'hui du mariage gay si ce n'était pas de la Cour suprême? Est-ce qu'on parlerait aujourd'hui des modalités de libération conditionnelle si ce n'était pas de la Cour suprême?
Puis les gens sont de plus en plus reconnaissants.
Les décisions de la Cour depuis tant d'années ont tellement d'impact sur la vie des gens, leurs familles, leurs amis, qu'ils devraient s'intéresser non seulement aux décisions de la Cour, mais également aux juges qui la composent. Je pense que c'est la raison majeure pour laquelle les gens continuent et continueront à avoir un intérêt dans la Cour suprême, dans les tribunaux en général.
And so I know that in particular you take an interest in developing and enriching that interest among young people in Canada. And when you were sworn in as Chief Justice of Canada, there were high school students in attendance at the ceremony. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about why that's so important and what you hope young people will retain from that experience.
Well, I think it's so important. I mean, young people are the future of society. And when I was appointed Chief Justice, I said to myself, maybe we should, as a first step, to open the court to other people, except for the usual suspects, I could call, the ceremony when a judge is presented, you have the Minister of Justice, you have civil servants, you have past judges, and so on and so forth. But why don't we open it to the future? And so I made sure to have about 65 students, both English-speaking schools, French-speaking schools, from Ontario, from Quebec, and they attended the ceremony. And after that, I met with them for half an hour, answering their questions. What do you do? How do you render your decision? All kinds of questions. And they loved it. So these people, at that age, they had maybe 16, 17 years old, maybe that will be the only time that they will get into a courtroom. Maybe not. But at least they'll know what a courthouse is. And I come back to the same proposition I made earlier, is that the more information you give to people, the less bias they'll have. So you have to start very young. And that was the reason why I wanted to make that example.
I think it's wonderful. And as a professor,
and they loved it.
I'm sure they did. I'm sure they will remember and tell their friends and colleagues and families and children.
Yeah.
Je vais retourner maintenant à l'espace physique de la cour parce que, en effet, vous allez quitter cet espace cette semaine, plus tard cette semaine, si je comprends bien. Vous allez déménager à Winnipeg comme institution avec tous les juges. Alors, est-ce que vous pourriez commenter un petit peu sur la signification de ce voyage et le fait que la Cour va siéger loin d'Ottawa?
Alors, ce voyage-là s'inscrit dans ma réflexion en vertu de laquelle on doit mieux communiquer avec la population canadienne. Alors, une fois qu'on a pris ce principe-là, on tente de trouver tous les moyens pour arriver à cet objectif-là. Et l'un des moyens, c'est peut-être d'aller au-devant des gens. C'est pas tout le monde qui peut aller à Ottawa entendre une cause à la Cour suprême du Canada. Donc, je me suis dit, pourquoi on n'irait pas à l'extérieur? Bon. La Cour suprême existe depuis 150 ans, c'est jamais arrivé. Il n'y a rien qui l'interdit, mais il n'y a rien qui en fait la promotion. Donc, je me suis dit, pourquoi pas? Et je pense que c'est dans l'air du temps. Je pense que c'était un signal que je voulais donner d'ouverture. Et les collègues ont été enthousiastes du premier jour pour faire cet exercice-là. Alors, c'est un exercice de communication directe. Et il fallait choisir un endroit. Remarquez bien, on n'est pas les pionniers dans ce domaine-là. Il y a la Cour suprême du Royaume-Uni qui le fait déjà depuis 2 ans, siège à l'extérieur de Londres. J'ai su également, notre Cour d'appel du Québec le fait déjà depuis quelques années. Ils ont siégé à Rivière-du-Loup, je pense, ou à Rimouski, Sherbrooke. Donc, c'est rien de révolutionnaire. Pour la Cour suprême, ça l'est un petit peu plus.
Assez révolutionnaire.
Mais pourquoi pas? Oui. Mais ce qu'on va faire, cependant, c'est qu'on va passer une semaine complète à Winnipeg. Vous allez me demander peut-être, Shauna, pourquoi Winnipeg?
Oui. Pourquoi Winnipeg?
Pourquoi pas? C'est le centre du pays.
Oui,
il y a une grande communauté francophone au Manitoba. Il y a une grande communauté d'Autochtones également et de Métis. Et donc, moi, je croyais que c'était le meilleur endroit pour commencer, pour aller voir les gens là-bas. Alors, ce qui va arriver là-bas, on a notre retraite annuelle qu'on doit faire de toute façon à chaque année. On a une journée où on va rencontrer les étudiants des écoles secondaires, dans 9 écoles secondaires différentes, rencontrer les étudiants pour qu'ils nous posent des questions sur notre travail. On va rencontrer les étudiants de la faculté de droit là-bas, Robson Hall. On va rencontrer le grand chef du MOC et le chef des Autochtones du Manitoba. On va rencontrer le chef des Métis également, M. Chartrand. On va rencontrer également la population locale au musée des droits de la personne là-bas, qui est un des plus beaux musées à Winnipeg. On va rencontrer la magistrature locale. C'est la semaine où les cours d'appel au Canada ont leur réunion à Winnipeg. On va être là. On va rencontrer la magistrature également locale, le Queen's Bench, les cours provinciales. Bref, ça va être un exercice de reaching out exercise pour aller à la rencontre des gens et faire connaître notre travail.
So, my final question on communication and reaching out and transparency of the court has to do with being online, internet. In your annual report of 2018 for the court, you indicate that the court reached people online more than 6 million times in 2018. So I wanted to ask you about the importance of that contact for the justice literacy, if you like, of Canadians.
Well, I'll give you my reasoning behind that, because it started more or less when I started as Chief Justice. You know, the courts usually, traditionally, were relying on the traditional media, the journalists, the newspapers, radio, TV, to transmit our decisions, to explain our judgments to the population. As you know, the media, they are in crisis. They don't have the means anymore. We don't have any correspondent now at the court. I don't think that other courts don't have such correspondence either. So we cannot only rely on the traditional media to make sure that our judgments are well known, well communicated. So that's the reason behind our willingness to go on social media. So the Supreme Court has a Facebook account, has a Twitter account, not the judges individually, but the court, the institution. That's where we put our judgments online, our news, and so on and so forth. So, and apparently there was a need because people are looking at it. And that's why also we've decided to release what we call the cases in brief, les causes en bref, since the month of March 2018. Les causes en bref, cases in brief is on one page. It's a summary of our decisions. And decisions, sometimes people will say, well, they are very long, complicated, complex issues, and so on and so forth, and it's true. So in order to make sure that other people, not the jurists, not the law professors, not the judges, but the people...
Not the students.
Yeah, well, they should know about it. But people who don't have a special knowledge in law may understand what a decision means in their life. What does that mean? So in one page, that's not easy because, it's much easier to write many pages than to reduce it. So the purpose of that was to reach out, to make sure that people know about our decision directly. And what we learned, because there was a survey recently, is that this concept was made to the benefit of, I don't like to use it, but the ordinary citizen who doesn't have the legal knowledge. But we learned that the media people will use it. We know that judges will use it. We know that law students will use it. And even law professors, I was told, will use it. So, in other words, I think it's a win-win situation. I think it was a good thing. It's part of this exercise of communicating directly with the people.
I'll come back to reasons for the long judgments when we have now the cases in brief. But we'll come back to that. But I wanted now to talk a little bit about what the judges do and la création, si on veut, du droit. Justice Robert Sharp of the Ontario Court of Appeal and past executive legal officer to Chief Justice Dixon in 1989-90 when I was there as a clerk, recently published a book that he entitled Good Judgment, Making Judicial Decisions. And in that book he says that judges certainly make law, but they do not make law up. So I wondered if you can explain what he means, not only in the context of the interpretation of charters of rights, which in 2019, we have had the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms for over 35 years, the Quebec Charter for over 40. So we're past the era, if you like, of the transformation of the role of the judiciary in giving meaning to rights and freedoms. That's an accepted and a daily part of the work of judges across the country, but also how this idea of making law but not making law up guides what judges do when they work with precedent in the common law tradition, when they interpret provisions of the Civil Code of Quebec, for example, particularly for an audience that isn't all jurists.
Yeah, well, that's a very good question. Mind you, I'm a bit hesitant to speak on behalf of Justice Sharp.
Sure.
I think he should be the one who give you the proper explanation to his wording.
I think I know what he means, yeah. but I wonder what
so
you
I'll try
think of that.
my best to answer you. But it was a good book. It is a good book, by the way, for anybody who wants to know a bit more about drafting judgments and collegiality on the court as well. which is another one of my interests.
It's coming.
So I think that, I heard so many times, and you've heard so many times, that, judges should not make the law. It's up to the elected officials to make the law, Parliament, National Assembly, and judge-made law is not good, and so on and so forth. I don't like that, and I don't agree with that. In other words, if the courts, and especially the Supreme Court of Canada, was called to decide on several issues, whether it be health issues like aid to suicide, whether it be Bedford for prostitution, whatever, it's because the Parliament gave the court the power and the duty and the obligation to decide on those issues. So, we did not use the power of Parliament when we decide those things, but we are acting in a responsible way. We are doing what we have to do. And we're not making the law. What Justice Sharp was saying is that we do not invent or create the law, but we interpret the law. And sometimes when you interpret the law, you give meaning, which brings some consequences, which may bring some people to say that it's new law. But of course, in a way, we're making laws because of the nature of the decisions we are releasing. But we do not invent, we do not create as such or substitute the intention of Parliament. We simply interpret the law as we are told to do. So, but sometimes, the law profession, the law itself is sometimes the people hesitate to innovate because we like the precedent. The law likes the precedent. The law likes the way that it was decided in one way, so we should follow the precedent. And precedents are good because it provides stability for the law and people know what to expect in a situation. That we need stability. But sometimes when you see that society must evolve, you have to push the envelope a little bit and you have to be more creative sometimes and look at decisions like the Carter decision on aid to suicide, for instance, or other decisions. You have to take this action in order to make sure that society will evolve.
I think Justice Sharp would think that you interpreted his words well. So, given the responsibilities, you talked about the obligations of the members of the Supreme Court. I want to talk a little bit about the voices of the judges and come back to the judgments themselves. Here I mean the entire judgments, not the cases in brief, but the long versions. Who reads Supreme Court judgments in their entirety, and why? What are some of the reasons for which it's important actually to pay careful attention to the words that are used by each judge in each judgment issued by the court? Yeah.
Well, if only because we spend so much time in drafting those decisions. Right. You could not believe. Well, you believe, I'm sure you do.
Yes.
But you have to realize and understand the process. It's a long process. Mm-hmm. And sometimes people will say, well, it took 8 months before the judgment was released. Yeah, well, 8 months is good. Sometimes because those are very complex issues. And we're 9. And I try to make sure that we sit at 9 on most cases, except sometimes we have to sit at 7 because some people have a conflict or for the as of right appeals. You have to know that there are 2 types of appeals. As of right, in other words, we have no choice. We have to hear the case because there was a dissent at the Court of Appeal in criminal matters. And the other case is on leave to appeal. So we choose our cases, usually. And usually in those cases, we'll sit at 9. So when you sit at 9, there are discussions, there are exchange of ideas, and the judge in charge of drafting the decision will circulate his reasons to the 8 other colleagues. The 8 other colleagues will give some comments, suggestions, changes, and this judgment, whether it is written in French or English, will be translated. The editor will look at it again, and you will receive the copy once again. So all this process takes time. And there's something I have to tell you is that at the Supreme Court of Canada, everything is well done. In other words, you may not agree with the result, you may disagree with the outcome, but the work is well done. We have a very good team of professionals, translators, for instance, or law branch, lawyers working at the court. Those are very professional people. And in French, we say, on tourne pas les coins ronds. So everything is well done, well looked at, and the judges are very proud of their work. So that may explain the time before we release the judgment. What was the other part of your question?
Ça aussi, ça vaut la peine de lire les jugements.
Yeah, that's why. If only for that.
C'est ça. If only for that.
If only for that.
Alors, jusqu'à quel point le fait qu'il y a souvent 9 juges, est-ce que l'unanimité est quelque chose désiré, préféré? Quand est-ce que c'est important pour vous, comme juge en chef, d'encourager ou de faire l'effort pour arriver à l'unanimité? Ou pourquoi, par contre, est-ce que c'est important des fois d'avoir les voix variées, y inclus celles en dissidence?
C'est une très bonne question. On voit souvent dans certains commentaires des gens qui disent « Ah, la Cour suprême, ils ne sont pas unanimes dans tous les dossiers. » Si les gens s'attendent à ce que 9 personnes, ayant 9 backgrounds différents, provenant de provinces différentes, parlant une langue différente, l'anglais ou le français, ayant 9 expériences professionnelles différentes, que ces 9 personnes-là soient unanimes dans tous les dossiers, bien, vous êtes en Chine, vous n'êtes pas au Canada. Vous êtes au Venezuela, vous êtes en Russie, mais vous n'êtes pas au Canada. Et je pense que c'est normal que l'on ait des différences d'opinion dans plusieurs dossiers dont les enjeux sont si importants. Cela dit, il n'y a rien de mal non plus à être unanime dans certains dossiers. Et des dossiers dans lesquels on fait affaire avec où on traite des enjeux délicats comme la santé, les droits humains et la liberté. Il y a des dossiers où, effectivement, une décision unanime qui souvent va être rédigée sous le nom de court, la cour. Moi, je l'ai fait. Donc, c'est bon, c'est un message qui est fort, c'est un message qui est clair, mais on n'a pas besoin d'être toujours unanime sur tous les dossiers. En autant qu'il y a une majorité qui est claire, solide, je pense que c'est respectueux des différences des juges, des différents points de vue également de la société. Et ça démontre une très grande démocratie. Moi, je me méfierais d'une Cour suprême dont les juges sont toujours unanimes.
It's interesting. I give my students a speech by Lord Gough of the United Kingdom Supreme Court, who talks about the importance of signing our judgments, the importance, as you just said, of being able to connect the words and the judgment to the individual judges. And sometimes it's very important to be able to link the particular approach to the particular
that being
judge.
said, serious efforts are made, or should be made, at least. That would be my wish, to avoid confusion.
Yes.
And confusion on very complex legal issues can happen when you will read a majority decision and then concordant reasons. They agree on the merit, but not on the way to get there. And sometimes you can avoid that with a good discussion between colleagues. We meet and we could. Do you really need to say that sentence, write that sentence, or can we get a compromise? And so we should try to avoid concording reasons if possible. Dissents. It's part of our DNA in North America, in the common law countries. It's good. It's good for the future as well. It shows that we have respect for different opinions. But I think that to help the citizen understand our decisions, to help law professors to teach those decisions to the students, to help judges apply the law also at the trial division, I think we should, and I think we do, try to avoid confusion and make it as clear as possible. So efforts are made to that, and I'm sure that my colleagues share my view on that.
Thank you. Your court, with you as Chief Justice, has been described as compassionate, and the words and actions of your colleague, Justice Gascon, as courageous. And I wondered, particularly following up on how you've spoken to us about how these are 9 individuals on the court and it's a big job, how you would describe the risk of loneliness or solitude on the court and the importance of collegiality that come with the job of Supreme Court of Canada Justice.
It is very important. People underestimate the sacrifice that some of us are doing. And nobody will cry about our adventure at the Supreme Court, but it is a sacrifice, because you take somebody from any province and you bring that person, man and woman, to go working in Ottawa. For us in Montreal, I was born and raised in Montreal. I studied in Ottawa, so it's an hour and a half if I speed a little bit.
That's pretty fast. I do it in 2.
Yeah, 2 hours is more like the rule. Well, I used to, that's in the past. It's not that bad, but take somebody from BC, from Newfoundland, from Ontario. You take those people and they move to Ottawa, have a new environment, they leave friends behind, some with family, special environments. So it is a sacrifice. It can be lonely for some of those people. And then the workload. And so it's very important that we have a good collegial atmosphere. And there is a lot of pressure on judges. And, this episode, which happened recently to a good friend of mine and good colleague and former McGill students too, is unfortunate, but positive things will come out of this adventure and this event. These mental issues, people were not talking about that before. And there are many, many problems in the legal profession and elsewhere. And people don't like to talk about it. There's a stigma around that. And I said publicly that it was courageous for this judge to do what he did, to declare it. We had several conversations together, and we came to the conclusion that that was the right thing to do. And I've made a statement that we have to support those people, whether it be in the legal domain or elsewhere. Mental issues is a reality, and we have to recognize that. And we have to support those people because they are a big, they can give a big contribution to society. The example is with Justice Gascon. So I think that I hope that efforts will continue in that sense, and will support those people.
Alors, on va parler un peu maintenant de la signification de votre propre trajet professionnel et personnel. Je vous invite parler un peu des liens entre votre expérience comme juge de première instance en particulier et le travail que vous faites actuellement. Vous avez mentionné les appels à la Cour suprême en les affaires en droit criminel. Et en effet, 50% à peu près des appels entendus à la Cour suprême sont des affaires de la justice criminelle. Qu'est-ce que vous voyez comme les liens entre votre propre expérience et le fait que des fois, les gens ne comprennent pas comment les cours d'appel doivent respecter et même adopter une approche de presque déférence à l'individu qui a la tâche de prendre la décision de première instance?
Oui. Évidemment, j'ai été juge à la Cour supérieure pendant quelques années, Cour d'appel un petit peu de temps, 2 ans, et à la Cour suprême en 2012. Mon expérience à la Cour supérieure, j'ai été nommé en 2004. J'ai trouvé ça absolument extraordinaire, mais surtout pour un aspect en particulier. C'est que moi, j'étais avocat pendant 25 ans en matière litige civil et commercial. J'ai un de mes anciens associés ici, mon bon ami Raymond Doré, avec qui j'ai travaillé beaucoup aussi. Donc, j'avais aucune expérience en droit criminel. Et quand je suis arrivé à la Cour supérieure, évidemment, le choc, c'était du jour au lendemain de travailler ou de décider dans des dossiers de droit de la famille, par exemple, que je n'avais jamais fait de ma vie. Et là, on voit vraiment la situation jusqu'à quel point les gens sont des fois démunis. Ça, c'est la vraie réalité de la société, là, les vrais problèmes. Là. Des gens qui n'ont plus de ressources, des problèmes de toutes sortes de problèmes de santé. Et ça, c'est la vraie vie. Et là, on est confronté à ça pour la première fois. Mais moi, j'avais quitté l'université avec un goût incroyable pour le droit criminel, que je n'avais jamais pu pratiquer comme avocat. Je vois M. Shachter, qui est là, qui était mon associé chez Lavery, qui était un des seuls chez nous qui pratiquait le droit criminel, puis je l'enviais pas mal, parce que moi, je n'avais jamais pu faire ça. Donc, quand j'ai été nommé juge en 2004, je me suis inscrit le lendemain à toutes les formations de droit criminel à travers le pays. Et après 1 an et demi, on m'a donné mes premières assignations en droit criminel. Et à la Cour supérieure, on préside des procès par jury, donc pour les crimes les plus sérieux, surtout des meurtres, trafic de drogue, ces choses-là. Et cette expérience-là, personnelle, de voir la réalité humaine que je n'avais jamais vue auparavant, dont j'entendais parler, c'est sûr, mais voir cette réalité-là devant vous m'a énormément affecté dans le sens où elle m'a donné, elle m'a apporté une autre façon de voir les choses également. Et je vais vous raconter une anecdote. Dans au moins 3 occasions, dans des procès pour meurtre, procès par jury, je me souviens d'une en particulier. C'était un anglophone, et le procès a eu lieu tout en anglais, et c'était un meurtre premier degré. Et il a été trouvé coupable. Et la pratique, c'était toujours de demander à l'accusé s'il y avait quelque chose à dire avant que je passe la peine, passe la sentence. Et un crime assez difficile, là. Et il avait tué sa conjointe, etc. Et il s'est levé. Il a dit « Judge, I had a fair trial. Thank you. » Il s'est assis et j'ai envoyé cette personne-là en prison à la vie. Et là, après ça, je me suis dit, ça vous prouve jusqu'à quel point, même dans les dossiers difficiles, même avec des gens criminalisés, des gens qui sont en souffrance, c'est important pour les juges, les tribunaux, de faire preuve de transparence, de bien faire les choses. C'est la manière par laquelle les gens, et même les criminels, peuvent avoir confiance dans le système de justice. Et pour moi, ça a été une très grande leçon. Puis à 2 autres reprises, les criminels condamnés m'ont dit « Je m'excuse, mais j'ai eu mon procès, je mérite ce que j'avais. Merci. That's it. » Alors, c'est pour ça que même dans les dossiers en civil, commercial, il y a un perdant puis un gagnant souvent. Des fois, il y a 2 perdants. Et ce qui est important, c'est que même ceux qui perdent continuent d'avoir confiance dans le système de justice. Et ça, c'est un exercice d'éducation, de faire connaître notre travail, de bien faire notre travail. C'est notre obligation. Alors, pour répondre à votre question, je ne sais pas si...
oui.
Cette expérience-là
non,
de pratique de 25 ans, litige civil commercial, une réalité, juge en matière familiale et surtout en matière criminelle, autre perspective. Pour moi, ça m'a été utile quand je suis venu à la Cour d'appel ou à la Cour suprême. Quand je lis des mémoires à la Cour suprême, je sais qu'est-ce que ça veut dire en réalité.
Oui, je vois bien. We referred earlier to the fact that your father was Minister of Justice in Quebec, and if I understand well, you have lawyers before you, after you, next to you in your family. But I want to talk not so much about your own personal family and jurists in the family, but the fact that some students, of course, come to the study of law as the first people in their families to come into the legal profession, or often as the first people in their families to go to university. And some of your colleagues on the bench of the Supreme Court, in fact, have had that experience. So in your view, how important is it for universities and law faculties, the legal profession, the bench to continue or to encourage and welcome those individuals? And you spoke before about contributions, the particular contributions that they can make.
I think you're right. I think it's very important that institutions like law school, for instance, make promotions to everybody, other organizations as well, not only to the people already involved in the legal environment like I was, but other people who were not exposed to what does that mean to be a lawyer, for instance, or notary, or work in the legal system. I think it's very important. Again, we go back to the same question, is communication, information, to give information, and provide opportunity as well. I remember when I was appointed judge of Superior Court, somebody I know who's not involved in the legal environment asked me, they call you Honourable now, but yesterday you were Richard. How come you became Honourable?
And now you're Right Honourable.
That's even worse, or more difficult to explain. But this is a basic question, why? And you have to go to the Judges Act and so on and so forth. But for the ordinary people, they have to understand the system. And I had to explain that. But it goes to show to what extent we need always to keep in mind always the opportunity to inform, educate the students and adults as well on the legal environment and what the people are doing, and the good challenges and the contribution that these people can do if they want to get involved in the law, whether as law professor or as lawyer, as notary,
or judges.
even eventually as judges.
I'm watching the time. I want to leave some time for questions from all of you, but I do want to squeeze in a question about réconciliation, truth and reconciliation, and looking to the future. Alors, la Cour suprême a joué un rôle clé en répondant aux revendications des peuples autochtones du Canada, en interprétant les traités, en respectant les coutumes ou en renforçant les droits garantis. Comment est-ce que vous décririez ce rôle et ses responsabilités en particulier de la Cour? Et est-ce que vous pouvez nous offrir des exemples concrets comme illustration? Et finalement, je vais juste ajouter une autre petite question. Selon vous, évidemment, la Cour suprême joue un rôle important, mais est-ce que les autres institutions en droit, surtout judicial education, mais aussi la formation continue des avocats, c'est quoi leur rôle aussi dans le processus de réconciliation entre les institutions de notre pays et les Premières Nations? du Canada.
La réconciliation, le processus de réconciliation comme tel, je pense que les gens sont commis à ce processus-là maintenant. C'est une réalité. On a besoin de le faire. On ne peut pas réécrire l'histoire, mais on peut corriger ce qu'on peut corriger, au moins pour l'avenir. Et moi, j'ai pour mon dire que l'on juge de la valeur d'une société par la manière avec laquelle on traite les gens les plus vulnérables, peu importe d'où ils viennent. Et je pense que cette communauté, les Autochtones au Canada, je pense qu'ils font partie de cette partie de la population des plus vulnérables, à cause de l'histoire. Quand on regarde les statistiques, on s'aperçoit que dans le régime pénitentiaire, par exemple, il y a un niveau de présence d'Autochtones inadmissible dans les prisons canadiennes. Il y a beaucoup de pauvreté, beaucoup de criminalité, et il faut corriger ça. Ce qu'on peut faire pour ça, évidemment, il y a les elected officials, il y a les élus, il y a les politiciens qui doivent s'occuper de ces choses-là en priorité, mais ça ne veut pas dire que les autres institutions, les autres parties de la société ne peuvent rien faire. Nous, les juges, là, toutes cours confondues, on a un rôle à jouer là-dedans, ça aussi. Et de se prendre des opportunités pour corriger le tir. Alors, les exemples, bien, quand les dossiers sont présentés devant nous, on prend les opportunités pour, justement, participer à cet effort-là, légalement, judiciairement parlant. Comme exemple, par exemple, dans le dossier de Eworth, l'année passée, c'est moi qui ai rédigé les motifs dans ça, on a réalisé, on avait une preuve à l'effet que les outils utilisés par les régimes pénitentiaires pour traiter les prisonniers en prison, bien, on n'utilisait pas les bons outils propices à la réalité autochtone pour évaluer les individus. Alors, ça faussait l'évaluation ultime. Alors, on a dit que le gouvernement devrait refaire ses devoirs. Thompson River, on devait décider si l'évaluation des dommages par le tribunal spécial des revendications qui existe avait bien fait son travail. Et là, c'était la norme d'intervention, etc. Mais là, encore une fois, la Cour suprême a décidé qu'il fallait donner pleine juridiction à ce tribunal-là, qui était spécialisé justement pour avoir ces réclamations-là. Il y a plusieurs exemples, et vous savez comme moi, on a rendu plusieurs décisions depuis 25 ans en matière de droits autochtones qui ont fait en sorte de contribuer, je pense, à la réhabilitation, à la réconciliation de ces gens-là au sein de notre société, selon nos lois en vigueur, et notamment la Charte des droits et libertés. Et je pense que ça va continuer. Je pense que c'est un exercice qui est long. Ça va être très long, parce que ça fait longtemps que ça existe. Oui. Mais moi, je suis convaincu que ça va apporter encore de bons résultats.
Merci. So now, I hope that I can't believe how fast the time has gone, actually, because there are many more things that the two of us could discuss, but I want to give a little bit of time. I'll collect 3 questions at a time. Obviously, questions related to substance of possible cases that would come before the Supreme Court are off the table. But I'll collect 3 questions at a time, and we'll see what we can do. And I gather there's a microphone. Do we need to pass the microphone in order to tape the questions? Yes. Okay, so one down here, and then, okay, so we'll do 1, 2, and 3. We'll keep the mic on this side to start.
She's asking me to stand. Can you hear me? Yeah. Thank you so much for a lovely encounter with you. It's a pleasure to meet you. I am one of the rare Anglophones who believes in the separation between church and state. I was born in Egypt, During my lifetime, I've never seen a veiled woman in my life. I've come here because there is equality between men and women. And to me, a veil is a political statement that has nothing to do with religion. I come from there and I know what I've left behind. So are we going to promote le communautarisme et l'intégrisme et le sectarisme dans notre pays, ou est-ce que nous allons promouvoir la citoyenneté, l'universalisme et le bien vivre ensemble? Voilà.
Okay. So we'll take a couple more and then we'll consolidate. So there were two right in the back, and then I promise I won't look at this section of the court of the new court anymore. I'll look over here after this. Okay.
Stand. Good evening, Justice Wagner. It's my privilege to speak with you. I'm a doctoral student at the faculty here, and I'm researching on the access to justice crisis that is there world over right now. But my focus is Canada right now. My impression is that Canada has been suffering from a crisis, access to justice crisis for a long time, at least for the last 40 years, I would say. And a lot of reforms have been made. Among the reasons for the reforms not working out, I noticed one peculiarity which I wanted to point out. It seems like between provincial executive and the judiciary, there has been some kind of tussle which has led to the reforms not being implemented, especially in the province of Ontario, like Zuber report and all those reports were there. Judiciary has couched this problem in terms of judicial independence, and Justice McLaughlin has spoken at length about it. But the executive does not want to yield the control which they rightly have under the Constitution. Right now, a lot of memorandum of understandings have been signed between the provincial executive and the judiciary. And I wanted to know your thoughts about on this, because this seems to be one area which has led to a lack of support from the judiciary towards the reforms that the executives have are trying to bring. Thank you.
Okay, and one last, yeah.
Thank you. Merci, cher juge en chef, d'être ici avec nous ce soir. Vous avez donné cette conférence sous le titre de notre estimé F.R. Scott, poète et juriste à la pensée magistrale. Souvent, le droit doit faire preuve de créativité, tel que Ron McDonald réfléchissant au sujet de droit, par exemple, et plusieurs membres de notre faculté de droit ici, on n'a qu'à penser à professeur Van Praag, Weinstock, Jukier ou Yanda en tant que bastion, si on veut, de créativité à la faculté de droit. Et la thèse de F.R. Scott porte en son sein, évidemment, c'est cette notion de poésie, de thèmes qui sont à être recyclés, mais aussi de thèmes nouveaux qui sont à être inventés. Par contre, ce que je me demande, c'est que vous êtes juge, et donc, un peu comme Leonard Cohen l'a dit à son introduction au temple of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, we shuffle behind our songs into the Hall of Fame, not quite believing that we've written them, but happy that you do. Je me demande à quel point vous vous sentez comme étant l'auteur de vos jugements, ou si vous ne faites qu'à fixer votre signature dans la marge d'une épopée juridique qui se poursuit encore, et si la créativité académique, parce que vous devez rester à l'intérieur des balises du droit, vous manque.
Bon, so we have three very varied comments and questions. And I hope all of you have a couple of hours to stay in the moot court. So brief responses, because I know that, and then we'll take one more round.
All right, so first question on what you just mentioned. Thank you for your question. Unfortunately, I may not give you a very positive answer to your question, because those issues that you raise may be brought before a court eventually. All this question of laïcité and the rest, and the impact of religion on the rest of society? Those are very legitimate questions that you are asking, and they are very sensitive issues as well. And one form or another of those issues may come before our court within the next couple of months or years. So I would prefer to be part of that debate. So in that sense, I would respectfully, I could not answer your question as such. As for the access to justice, the gentleman who asked the question, we have to understand that access to justice means many things. It's not only financial means to go to the court or pay a lawyer to represent the client. It means also to know about your rights. And that's access to justice. That's information. Know your tools before taking the decision to hire a lawyer. You have to know what are your rights. And so there are many aspects of the access to justice issue. And the initiatives that I referred to earlier, the cases in brief, meeting people in their own province, direct communication is part of access to justice. So I think that there are, and not only from the Supreme Court, but from other courts also in Canada, they are doing that more and more, I think. So I think there's some improvement on that. You have to realize, so far as I'm concerned, that the justice environment was the parent pauvre of society for the last 50 years. Governments did not invest in the justice system, not only in Quebec, in the rest of Canada and elsewhere in the world. They prefer, I think it was right in a way, to put all the money in the health department, and that's okay. Education is great also. But those choices, as a consequence, well, the legal system in Canada was the parent pauvre. So they had, and that situation led to, for instance, the Jordan decision that we released a couple of years ago, for which I was in dissent, mind you, because I thought it was a big price to pay, but that's in the past. That's our law. But that's a result of negligence for so many years. And then that was the wake-up signal, and governments decided to invest now in the legal system, millions of dollars for the last couple of years. I think we're going in the right direction, and I think that the courts are supporting those efforts. And so I'm very, very optimistic for that, I think, because if the legal system is not supported, that may mean the end of democracy and liberty at the end. So we have to be very careful. On the third question, votre troisième question sur Cohen, que j'aimais beaucoup. La créativité, il me semble que j'en ai. Il me semble que je ne l'ai pas perdue. Je vous invite à lire quelques-unes de mes décisions que j'ai signées avec l'appui de mes collègues. Mais c'est une créativité raisonnable. C'est une créativité qui s'inscrit dans le rôle qu'un juge doit avoir. Alors, évidemment, on doit être conscient de notre rôle, c'est d'appliquer la loi. Puis des fois, quand on applique la loi, comme je l'ai mentionné plus tôt, avec l'évolution de la société, on peut être un peu créatif dans son application. Et je pense que c'est sain de pouvoir faire ça. Au Canada, contrairement à d'autres pays, je serais peut-être hésitant dans d'autres pays à donner de la discrétion aux juges pour rendre des décisions. Par exemple, ici au Québec, on a un code de procédure civile qui donne beaucoup de discrétion aux juges parmi les réformes. Il y a eu le nouveau code de procédure civile a été dicté, c'était mon père justement à l'époque, en 1965, qui a passé le nouveau code de procédure civile. Depuis ce temps-là, on a un nouveau code en 2003. Depuis ce temps-là, on a un nouveau code plus récemment. Et à chaque fois, si vous regardez les versions, le législateur donne plus de discrétion aux juges, plus de pouvoir d'intervention, éviter les abus, par exemple. Si un juge voit qu'il y a un abus d'une partie, bien, il va pouvoir arrêter ou stopper, limiter les dommages. ce qui était impensable auparavant. Et ce qui serait très dangereux dans une société où les juges sont incompétents, où les juges qui n'auraient pas l'indépendance judiciaire. Mais ici, au Canada, on est chanceux, on a une magistrature indépendante. On peut se permettre de donner à nos juges plus de discrétion parce qu'ils sont indépendants, ils ont une bonne formation, ils sont bien formés. Les juges étrangers viennent se former chez nous. Et donc, on peut se permettre plus de discrétion. Alors, ça fait partie un petit peu de la créativité dont vous faisiez mention. Évidemment, ce n'est pas un tableau, puis ce n'est pas une œuvre musicale. Mais moi, je vous dis qu'on n'a pas perdu pour autant, comme juge de la Cour suprême, notre sens de la créativité.
C'est beau. Yes, I'm just looking to the Friends of the Library just to check. All right, so we'll take one in the middle here. Okay, so 1, 2, and maybe one over on this side. Okay, so one. So brief questions so that we can all release you in a few minutes.
Thank you, Chief Justice Wagner. You've alluded to some other jurisdictions that I guess don't necessarily have such a strong judicial culture and a culture for which you feel a lot of pride for compared to in Canada. But what is an apex court of another jurisdiction that you admire and why?
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. You mentioned at one point that when you were appointed to be a trial judge, you kind of went back and reviewed your criminal law. I think that's very important. But I was wondering at the point when our justices reached the Supreme Court, and given that you deal with charter issues, and Section 1, speaks of limitations that are acceptable in a liberal democracy, is there a place for training in the political theories and philosophy that inform that concept? Because if you look at the early childhood judgments of the Charter, the justices often quoted, philosophers and theories on what this meant to live in a liberal democracy. We see that less now. Is that because the question has been decided? Are we getting less judges who have a background of political science? And, should that be part of their education, given that that is kind of the determining factor of our charter, that limitation clause?
Thank you. And then,
Thank you for being here. Do you believe that the Gladue factors impair the principle of equality before the law?
okay, so we will take those three. The last one
We
may need a
won't-
little
we-
explanation from you.
Well, we won't start by the last one.
No, that's just,
I thank you for the question anyway. But first question was as Chief Justice also, I have to tell you that we have many meetings with other Supreme Court in the world. We're going to meet with the U.S. Supreme Court next year, with the Netherlands Supreme Court in the fall, with the Irish Supreme Court next June, with the Israel Supreme Court next April. So we have many of those meetings. And I became this year the president of what we call the ACCF, Association of French Constitutional Courts in the world. So that gives me the chance to meet other constitutional courts as well. So it's hard to answer your question because there are very good systems outside Canada. I think we have one of the best. I truly believe it, but that's my own perspective. And there are good points in many other Supreme Courts. Essentially, I will tell you that there's a link between their success rate and influence in society and the level of their independence. The more they are independent, the more impact they have in their own society, I would say. And when I look, for instance, at the Israeli Supreme Court, they have a major role to play in their own society. Other countries as well. So that's the relation I make with the nature of their work. Yes, you're right. Good questions. When the charter was adopted in 1982, everything was new. Parliament has asked judges to decide what was the meaning of several words in all kinds of employment law and health issues, so on and so forth. So you had to rely, you have to refer to other documents, theories, philosophy, in order to start to interpret those words. I think that a lot of work has been done, and I think we're at the stage now where it's not so much to determine what it means, but how can it be applied to a set of facts. And although there are still outstanding questions, but I think you're right. I think that maybe you don't see as many references to philosophy now that we used to, but you still read some of those references in our cases, but maybe less. That's the explanation I have. I'm sorry for the Gladu question, because of course it's Gladu by itself, by definition, gives you the answer that because of the situation of the Aboriginals in Canada, the courts had to decide issues while considering the context of being an Aboriginal in Canada, and that's what explains Gladu.
Okay. So I had promised the Chief Justice that I would just pose a last short question to him before we bring this to a close. So I will, and I hope you'll see why it's a nice way to finish off. So, si vous étiez invité à donner un discours bilingue à la collation des grades pour les finissants d'une école secondaire au Canada, what would your key message be?
I would say trust your instinct, trust your ability, because faites-vous confiance. That's what I would tell them, because I find that too many times young people don't have enough trust in their own abilities, and you will always find other people who will try to discourage you in doing things. But I think that somebody who's bright and works hard, I think that woman or man should trust his or her abilities. That's what I would say.
That's a very nice way, I think, to finish.
Thank you.
So it's now my pleasure to call upon the principal of McGill University, Madame la Professeure, Madame la Principale Suzanne Fortier, to offer formal words of thanks.
Bonsoir à vous tous et surtout un très, très grand merci au très honorable Richard Wagner, juge en chef de la Cour suprême du Canada. On est vraiment honorés que vous ayez accepté cette invitation de prononcer le discours F.R. Scott ici à McGill. This was such a fascinating conversation that took us to so many places. Some were not expected, such as architecture and poetry, but of course also the importance of institutions and the importance of the independence and the transparency of our institution. I know that I was particularly pleased to hear of how you want to bring the Supreme Court of Canada closer to people, going to Winnipeg, online, your own interest in young people and your confidence in young Canadians, of course, the Truth and Reconciliation. It's really great to hear your insights and your thoughts and where the work of you and your colleagues will take us. I would say one thing, Chief Justice Wagner, expect to receive a lot of postcards. They will say something like this: I saw you at McGill. I liked you. You gave me great confidence in our Supreme Court. P.S. Please come back very often. Et j'aimerais aussi remercier le professeur Van Prau. You led us through a very fascinating and very captivating conversation. Merci beaucoup. And now, on behalf of McGill University, of our library, and of the Friends of the McGill Library, I'd like to offer each of you a small token of our appreciation. So I'll bring it to you. Let's see here. Alors, ça, c'est pour
Merci
vous.
beaucoup, c'est très gentil, franchement. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup. And to close the evening, I will call on Colleen Cook, who's the Trenholm Dean of Libraries.
Well, it's hard to follow any of this up, so I'm not going to try for very long at all. But what I just have to say is what a wonderful way to begin the semester. This has been an incredible evening. And thanks very much to Chief Justice Wagner, Professor Van Prau, Justice Hilton, Principal Fortier, and Ann Vroom for this evening. They have given us, all of you, much to ponder, and I agree you should come back more often. Now that we know it's home, and it's only, you could probably get here in like an hour and 15 minutes. Probably wouldn't be so bad, particularly when it's not in the snow. Anyway, okay. Gratitude, of course, goes out to Lavery lawyers whose support have made this evening possible. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge, of course, the Friends of the Library for their amazing work, dedication, and advocacy. I encourage you to visit their website and the library's websites and learn more about them and all of the upcoming events. And please come see us at the library. We've got many, many great activities and incredible things to see. Good night, and thank you very much.